Another plane of migrants arrived today in Sacramento, the second in 3 days. California Governor Gavin Newsom and Attorney General Rob Bonta now pointing the finger at Florida, saying the migrants' transportation was arranged by a Florida company known to transport migrants in the past. With more on this, we are joined by Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson. Professor, thank you so much for weighing in on this topic. It's a controversial one. So this is what we know. On Friday, 16 migrants ended up, I believe it was the Archdiocese there in Sacramento. Then today, another round of 20 were there in Sacramento, in our state's capital. Governor Newsom and Bonta, as mentioned, is blaming Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Can they prove this?
Well, they may be able to prove that politically he was behind it. Whether or not they can actually file criminal charges in this case, I think, is an entirely different story. But there will now be an investigation, and the reporting is that some of the migrants showed up with paperwork from Florida, and they're going to have to figure out who was in charge of telling the migrants they should get on this plane, that they should go to Sacramento, and whether or not Governor DeSantis or others from Florida played a role.
Right now, we haven't heard anything from Governor Ron DeSantis there, who we know announced his bid for the White House just last week. We have heard, of course, some strong words from Governor Gavin Newsom. He put up a tweet. We want to show you what this says. It says, "At Ron DeSantis, you small, pathetic man. This ain't Martha's Vineyard. Kidnapping charges, ? And then read the following. So he has attached the penal code for kidnapping charges. So you mentioned that whether or not they can prove it was him or prove it was charges, two very different things. Does he have a case there? Could they actually file kidnapping charges?
So we would need more evidence to get to a criminal complaint. I would say that at this point, I don't know that it rises to the level of kidnapping. I know there's also been a discussion by Attorney General Bonta of false imprisonment. Again, you're going to hear me say this. We just don't know enough. And I don't think, frankly, we have enough for a criminal complaint based on kidnapping. It doesn't mean that what happened to these migrants is okay. It doesn't mean that it is good. It means that under the California Penal Code, the evidence at this point, I don't think, indicates kidnapping or false imprisonment. Maybe, as the Attorney General has discussed, maybe there's a civil case dealing with California's unfair competition law and it essentially inducing these migrants by fraud to get on the plane, telling them there will be jobs, there will be a center to help you. But at this point, it's too early to say, given the facts we have now, that this would amount to kidnapping, which usually includes something like use of force or fear. And the fear isn't, I'm worried about what my life would be like. The fear is basically your money or your life.
What about the idea, because there are reports that these migrants were promised basically, you know what, if you get on this private jet, if you get on this bus, you know, your dreams will come true a lot faster than if you don't. So that, is there any legal recourse for that?
It's a great question. And I think that's where you're looking more at, again, a civil case dealing with fraud, dealing with inducing these people to get on the plane based on false promises. The reporting at this point indicates that there were no jobs lined up. There was no migration center there to help, that this is all just a ruse to get the migrants to Sacramento and basically to abandon them outside of that church. So maybe, but again, at this point, I don't think that we would have enough for a criminal complaint.
Is this a spat? This spat, I should say, is this a preview of what's to come in a general election 2024 or beyond, noting the rivalry between Governor DeSantis and Governor Gavin Newsom, who, of course, as we know, over and over and over says that he has no plans to run for the White House? What are your thoughts?
Yes, I mean, Governor Newsom is made himself and has become a national figure, and he absolutely has been taking on Governor DeSantis and has been doing that to show that California, in his view, is nothing like Florida. And this issue of immigration, while it might not continue to be between Newsom and DeSantis, it will absolutely continue to be a big conversation in 2024, in part because of the differences in the two parties when it comes to what our immigration policies should look like, who should be in charge of and responsible for migrants and asylum seekers. You see a big schism between the two parties. It might be Newsom and DeSantis who keep talking about this, but we will certainly continue to hear this conversation.
All right, Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson, as always, we thank you for your time.
Thank you.